Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to On the Couch podcast. I'm your host, Nazario Pangallo. Here on this podcast, we will preview sports, talk about sports news, and recap previous sports games. We also will do special interviews with high school athletes and some college athletes. If you like sports, well, you're going to want to tune in to On the Couch podcast. Now to your host, Nazario Pangallo. Back on the Couch podcast. I'm your host, Nazario Pangallo, here with your Week 14 NFL recap. Now, biggest news of the week, the Rams beat the Cardinals. Now, this shakes up the NFC playoff race quite a bit. The Rams went into Arizona and beat the Cardinals 30-23. Kyler Murray had 2 interceptions, not really his best game. Cooper Kupp, though, played a terrific game, 13 receptions, 123 yards, and a touchdown. Now, this is a big thing for the NFC playoff race. I'll tell you why. Cardinals, before that, had the driver's seat to be the number 1 seed and have home field advantage. Now, with this loss by the Cardinals, the Packers jumped to first place and the Bucs jumped to number 2. The Cardinals and the Packers have already played each other, and Green Bay won the head-to-head matchup. So they have that tiebreaker, and the Bucs have the tiebreaker over the Cardinals based on strength of victory right now. So what this means is in the last 4 games, the Cardinals don't control their own destiny anymore. The Green Bay Packers control their own destiny to once again host the NFC playoffs. This could be back-to-back years for them if they were to end up with the 1 seed. Why does this matter so much? Well, Arizona, they're an inexperienced team, you would say, a little bit. They got a quarterback that's never been to the playoffs. They've got a head coach that's never been to the playoffs. So playing at home could be a big factor because they have that home field advantage. They obviously have their fans behind them. It takes the nerves away a little bit. Now, who are their next 4 games? They got the Saints, Panthers, Jets, Panthers. To me, that should be 4 wins. This is the Bucs' last 4 games. The Bucs' last 4 games: Saints, Panthers, Jets, Panthers. I don't see the Bucs losing any of those last 4 games. So to me, they're going to finish 14-3. If you look at the Packers, their final schedule, their last 4 games, they have to play the Ravens, tough game, Browns, tough game, Vikings, tough game, and then the Lions. The Lions are never a tough out. They've played close games with a lot of people. And so if you look at those games for the Packers, they could wind up going 2-2 possibly. I don't know. Maybe if something wild happens, they could go 2-2. So that's what they're looking like. They can definitely win those 4 ball games. They can come off that big win on Sunday night versus the Bears. Aaron Rodgers put up 4 touchdown passes, played a terrific ball game. Now, if you look at the Arizona Cardinals, in their last 4 games, they're only a game above the LA Rams now for that division. So that's very tight. But their last 4 games, they got the Lions, should be a win. Colts, very good game on Christmas Day. Who knows what could happen there. Then they got to go to Dallas. Then they got the Seahawks at home. So they're looking at maybe going 2-2. So to me, this really helps the Buccaneers. They look great now to win their next 4 games and claim that number 1 seed. If you look at the NFC, it's very top heavy. You got about 5 really good football teams that you say all 5 could probably go to the Super Bowl, saying the Packers, the Bucs, the Cardinals, the Rams, and maybe the Cowboys. I'm not sold on the Cowboys as a Super Bowl contender quite yet, but those first 4 teams definitely Super Bowl contenders. And having to go to where they play with their atmosphere, with their crowd, is just a huge factor, especially in the playoffs. Going to Green Bay, that's going to the cold. That's not going to be fun. LA doesn't want to go to the cold. We've seen Brady can go to the cold and get that win. Arizona, I don't think they want to go up there and play in the cold. So all those teams definitely don't want to. I know the Bucs, they're fine with going wherever. They did it last year, same ball club. They went on the road and won all their games. They're fine with it. But if the Bucs are able to get a home field advantage, I don't think it'll matter too much for the other teams because Packers, they could go play in the heat. Cardinals could go play in the heat. LA gets to play in the heat. It's not a huge factor, but having to go to Green Bay, big factor for these other football teams. And, it's very interesting. I think right now I'm going to take the Bucs to win the NFC. I've had them all year, and it looks like they're going to claim the 1 seed. Looking at their upcoming schedules and who they have to play. But some other big games from this week. The Steelers over the Vikings, kind of a big game. Sort of. Vikings got a big win to move to 6-7 back into the playoff race. Steelers take a tough loss. They're looking at about, I think, ninth place right now in the AFC. Very tough race there. They made a great comeback in the fourth quarter. 21 points in the fourth quarter, only lost by 8. Had a chance if not for Chase Claypool. Ben Roethlisberger played a really great fourth quarter. Was 28 for 40, 308 yards and 3 touchdowns. Dalvin Cook, though, star of the show, 27 carries, 205 yards and 2 touchdowns. Just terrific game by him. And we saw the Steelers defense not play their best ball game after having a great performance versus the Ravens. We'll see how these teams fare wrapping up the season. They're both trying to make the wild card. The Vikings, they got the Bears, the Rams, Packers, Bears. So to me, that's looking at about 2-2, 8-9 record. Maybe you can sneak in the wild card in the NFC, as that's a lower tier, low wild card. Those last teams aren't the best. But the Steelers, they're gonna have a really, really tough time right now. 6-1. You got the Titans, Chiefs, Browns, Ravens. They could possibly go 0-4. Realistically, they'll probably go around 2-2, 8-1. I don't think that's good enough to make the playoffs, unfortunately. I think they're gonna have to win at least 3 of these ball games. All right, we got Ravens, Browns. Obviously, story of this game was Lamar Jackson going out with an injury, but also to note the Ravens lost Calais Campbell in this game. No news on whether these two will be able to play upcoming this week, but we have to talk about how great of a comeback the Ravens almost pulled off. They made it 24-22. They got the onside kick with 1:20 left, had 2 timeouts, and needed to gain about 20 yards to set up Justin Tucker to win this game. Man, watching this Ravens football team, I love the way they play. They play so hard. They're never out of a game. No matter who's on the field. They were without Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, and Jimmy Smith. Your top 3 cornerbacks. You're running on basically practice squad corners. You have a backup quarterback. You have Devontae Freeman as your top running back and Latavius Murray, who are a little bit washed. And you had a bad O-line. The offensive line of the Ravens is not good. It's just been terrible all season. They don't have a consistent run game. You're relying on your quarterback basically to do everything. And Tyler Huntley really did well other than his 2 fumbles. If they don't turn the ball over twice on those 2 fumbles, they probably win this football game. But Browns, it's the NFL. A win is a win. But I'm looking at these Browns and I'm wondering, how in the world do you let this Ravens team play a 2-point football game and have the chance to win in the fourth quarter? The Browns were up 24-6 at halftime. They didn't extend their lead. They let the Ravens come back. They should not have let this happen. They should have put them away. And to me, right now, though, if you look at it, the Browns are in the driver's seat to win this division. They're a game back of the Ravens. They get the Raiders, who are struggling. They get the Packers. That's a tough game. But then they get the Steelers and Bengals. They really control their own destiny. 3-1, 10-7. I think that's good enough to win this division. Especially when you look at it, they got the Bengals last. They're tied with the Bengals right now. The Bengals got they got the Broncos, Ravens, Chiefs, and then the Browns. Realistically, that final game could be to see who wins this division. If you looking at the Ravens, they have an extremely tough schedule. There is possibility they don't win another game this year and don't make the playoffs. Do I think they're going to? I think they will. This team is so resilient. They have the toughest losses in the NFL right now. Other than the Bengals, they don't have the toughest losses in the NFL. They have the most injuries in the NFL. They lost so many players, but that's not an excuse. They got to come out. They got the Packers at home, Bengals on the road, Rams and Steelers at home. They got a chance. They control their own destiny to go win this division. So they got to go out. And what do they got to do? They have got to find a run game. They have to find a run game other than Tyler Huntley or Lamar Jackson, whichever one's going to be playing quarterback. They got to find a way to run the football behind the offensive line. They haven't been able to do it well all season. All their rushing yards have basically been Lamar. They get a few rushing yards from the running backs. They got to get that run game back. We saw from 2019, what was this team so good at when Lamar Jackson won MVP? Running the football and dominating the clock, dominating time of possession, and controlling the football. They also were able to turn the other team over a lot more than they had this season. Obviously, have to do with Marcus Peters, great ball hawk in the secondary. And this Ravens team hasn't been playing. Think about if this team was full strength, how good they could be. They're 8-5 right now, and imagine they have Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey. Imagine you got J.K. Dobbins or just Gus Edwards. One of those two. This team could be so much better. I think this year, just to make the playoffs would really be quite remarkable considering all the injuries they've had. But looking to next year, if this team can build an offensive line to be able to run the football more consistently, this team will be one of the scariest in the NFL for sure. This season, though, I think if they win 2 of their next 4, they can make the playoffs for sure. So I'm thinking I don't see them beating the Bengals because the matchup in the secondary is I don't see how they're going to be able to cover T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and obviously Jamar Chase, who had an amazing game last time. I don't see how they're going to be able to do that. I don't know how they're going to be able to guard the Packers. They got Devontae Adams. They have nobody to cover Devontae. And then in LA, they really don't have anyone to cover LA's receivers: Cooper Kupp, Odell, Van Jefferson. I mean, realistically, these next 3 games are going to be the hardest. I don't see how they can win any of them with their defense in the way that it is. They're going to have to find a way to get some pressure. That's another thing they haven't been doing as well this season is getting pressure on the quarterback, whether that's when they're blitzing or when they're not blitzing. They have not been able to get to the quarterback as good as they had hoped to, other than the rookie Owe. He's been the spotlight of the defense and causing the most pressure. But they got to find a way to win one of those 3 and then beat the Steelers. They can beat the Steelers. They were in a 1-point game 2 weeks ago. Should have won that game. Realistically, should have thrown that ball and made that play. But if you look at the recent games, 10 points versus the Dolphins, 16 versus the Bears, 16 versus the Browns, 19 versus the Steelers, 22 versus the Browns. A little bit lower scoring than what we were seeing earlier in the season when they put up 34 versus the Vikings, 34 versus the Chargers, 31 versus the Colts, 36 versus the Chiefs. They got to find that offense again. They got to find a way to run the football better. But I'm going to move away from the Ravens. I've talked a little bit too much about them probably, but let's move on to the Chiefs. The Chiefs are my pick from the AFC right now to make the playoffs, or to make the Super Bowl. I said earlier in the season they weren't going to make the playoffs. Man, was I wrong. I disrespected them. I am sorry. That was a terrible take on me now. Now, realistically, if you're looking at that point in time, it wasn't that bad of a take. Their defense was the worst in the NFL, and their offense was playing bad. I mean, their offense straight was playing bad. And now we look at it, and they have the best defense in the NFL right now in the past 6 games. Their defense has been absolutely dominant. If you look at it, they led up 17 versus the Giants, 7 versus the Packers, 14 versus the Raiders, 9 versus the Cowboys, 9 versus the Broncos, and 9 versus the Raiders. If you look at the offense, it's been okay other than the 2 Raiders games. I don't know what the heck's going on versus the Raiders, but they put up 41 and 48 versus them, and the rest of them not the best performances. But this defense has been so good. I mean, it's unbelievable how you can turn a defense around this quickly. Obviously, they have a huge game this week. They're tied. They are tied with 3 teams, the Patriots and the Titans and themselves, for the number 1 seed in the AFC. Obviously, nobody wants to go through Arrowhead, but they got a big game in the divisional race against the Chargers. It's in LA, Thursday Night Football. Going to be a great, great game. If you look at it, this could determine the winner of the AFC West. Chargers are 8-5. Chiefs are 9-4. The Chargers already beat the Chiefs one time this season. If they beat the Chiefs again, they'll have the head-to-head, and they'll be equal in record, which means the Chargers will be number 1. So this is a huge game. I'm not going to quite preview it too much yet, but if you look at the Chiefs, they got the Chargers, Steelers, Bengals, Broncos. All winnable games, all losable games. So we'll see how it goes. If their defense keeps playing the way it's been playing, they'll be just fine. All right, let's move to the NFC East. Big divisional matchup between the Cowboys and the football team. Cowboys jumped out to a big lead and were able to hold off the comeback of the football team. It wound up being 27-20. Really, sort of the game, was the Dallas defense. They forced 4 turnovers in this game. Dak, if you look at it, 211 yards, a touchdown, and Zeke, 12 carries, 45 yards. Not much of a showing, but when you got a great defense like that, led by the Defensive Rookie of the Year, Micah Parsons, and maybe the Defensive Player of the Year, Micah Parsons, that's just going to win you football games. Great defense wins you games, and what does it win you? Championships. Defense wins championships. It has been said through the years, and it is still the most true thing in football. Ask the Bucks from last year ask Patrick Mahomes when he got absolutely dominated by the Buccaneers defense. But the Cowboys, they're They got a little 2-game losing streak, made us a little scared. They won the last 2. Wasn't first the best opponents. They got the Giants and the football team back to back here. Then they get a real test. Then they have to play the Arizona Cardinals. So to me, they should win these next 2 games. If they win these next 2 games, they'll secure their division for sure. And then we'll get to see what they're really about when they have the Arizona Cardinals at home on January 2nd. All right, so let's move on here. Let's check out what we got. What is another? Oh, man. What a game. 2 great football games in the late window. We had the 49ers. They go into Cincy. Big lead going into the fourth quarter, 20-6. Those Bengals came back, though. The Cardiac Cats made it a little interesting. Joe Burrow played great in the fourth quarter, put up 14 straight, wound up tying it up at 20. I've heard from all my Bengal all fan friends. They said they got the ball first in overtime. They were driving down the field and they ran the football. Joe Mixon was 18 carries, 58 yards. Burrow 348 and 2 touchdowns. Why are you running the football? I'm not sure. Zach Taylor, bad play calling. That's all I heard from my friends. Bad play calling in overtime. They settled for a field goal. The Niners went down. George Kittle, absolutely terrific performance. 13 receptions, 151 and a tutty. Beast game by George Kittle. And Ayuk found a way to get into the end zone on a pass from Jimmy G to win the game for the Niners. This puts both these teams at 7-6, both in the wild card. Bengals have really just dropped an opportunity to take control of the AFC North. They have lost their past 2 games, and if they would have won just one of those, they would be sitting at first in their division. Now, if you look ahead, they control their own destiny. They definitely do. They got the Broncos at home, they got to go to Denver. Tough game. Never want to go to Denver. It's always tough there. Baltimore at home. That's a very winnable game. I would pick them to win that football game. I would put money on them. I'll put money on them to win that game because of the matchup they have in the secondary or on offense. Really, their wide receivers should absolutely dominate that game, and they should throw all over the Ravens. Then they get the Chiefs at home. Big game. I don't know if they can win that one, but if they can win the others, they'll be just fine. And they finish with going to Cleveland to play the Browns. So they tied with the Browns right now, down 1 game to the Ravens. Definitely can win the division, but definitely can also not even make the playoffs if they lose these games. All right, moving on to Bills-Bucks. What a great football game we had there as well. The Buccaneers, led by Tom Brady, with 363 yards and 2 touchdowns, keeps improving his MVP case. We're up 27-10 in this football game. Then the Bills stormed back, put up 17 in the fourth quarter to make it 27-20. These teams would go to overtime, where Brady would find Rashad Perryman for a 58-yard touchdown to win the game. Now, big things from this game. I saw a couple things on Instagram. I can't lie to you. I saw some pictures of some refs apparently missing some calls. I was not watching. I didn't see them exactly. Didn't see them in real time. I don't know if the pictures were photoshopped. Obviously, crazy things like that can happen. But, Tom Brady got a 700 touchdown pass to win this game. That's quite remarkable. And Josh Allen and the Bills, we gotta wonder about something. Okay, Josh Allen obviously 308 yards, 2 tutties, 54 passing attempts, quite a lot. Brady had 46. And then if I look at the rushing yards, the leader in rushing yards for the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen. Josh Allen is leading you in rushes. I don't know how I feel about that. The Buffalo Bills, having a top 5 offense and top 5 ranked defense, are 7-6. And the 7 seed in the AFC right now. Obviously, the Bills, they were coming from behind, had to throw the ball a little bit more. They only had 7 carries outside of Josh Allen. Pretty wild. Stephon Diggs, Dawson Knox both played pretty well. Total of 14 catches for 134 and a touchdown. Those 2 are very good, but don't forget about Cole Beasley, 9 catches for 64 yards. This Buffalo Bills team can turn around, get hot, and win this AFC. But they could also lose their next couple games and not even make the playoffs. It's quite unbelievable, this AFC. It's just so wild. But the Buffalo Bills finished with the Panthers, at the Patriots, the Atlanta Falcons, and the Jets. 3 very winnable games. Tough game versus the Patriots. The Bills really went through a little bit of a gauntlet there their past couple games. They had to play the Saints, who are pretty good. They started with the Colts. Then they got the Saints. Then they got the Patriots, and then they got the Bucks. That's 4 tough football games. You got to go to New Orleans. Never easy. But if you looked at before that, they had a chance to really take the lead in this division and this conference. They had the Titans, the Dolphins, the Jags, and the Jets. They lost 2 of those games. They went 2-2 in four very winnable football games. So the Bills have been struggling, but they get to finish the season with three of their 4 last games being very winnable. They need to win these games to make the playoffs. I don't think they can win the division anymore, but we need to see what this team can really do. I mean, they're just dropping games that you got to be able to win. The Colts dominated you. You lost to the Jags. Then the Bucks one is tough. The Patriots one, weather tough to win those 2 games, but you got to be able to beat the bad teams when you get the shot. So when you lose close ball games to good football teams, you're okay because you beat the bad teams. I don't know what's going to happen with these Bills through the season. I'm going to guess they're going to make the playoffs and probably win about 1 game in the playoffs. I don't know. I'm not seeing, if they're not having home field advantage, this team go on the road and make it to the Super Bowl. I'm not sure about that, but we'll see. But I'm going to wrap this episode up. And yeah, I'm going to wrap this episode up. Thank you all for tuning in to On the Couch podcast. I'm your host, Nazario Pangallo, and peace out.